What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking Sports with Man. Let's get it. So, guys, man, the NBA is back in full swing. I am loving all of the trade rumors. This is one of my favorite times in sports. I've said, hey, NFL, you can take a break right now. It's all about the NBA. So tons of trades have gone down, and there's tons of rumors that are about to go down. Everybody knows that the NBA draft is tomorrow. I'm excited about that. I'm a Lakers fan and a Wizards fan. My love for the DMV. But anyways, let's talk about the first trade that went down. We got the Lakers, my Lakers, acquiring Dennis Schroeder, and then the OKC Thunder, they received Danny Green and the first round pick, which is pick number 28. An amazing deal. You can't beat that. As a Laker fan, it's been love and hate for Danny Green. I've loved him. I hated him. I think the very first game of the season, he drops like 25 or 27 points against the Clippers. And I'm like, man, this was a really, really good pickup. I'm like, $15 million? That was a steal. But then the more you get to know Danny Green, and then you see Danny Green out there doing Danny Green type things in terms of being bad and missing wide open shots. He even had death threats during the finals when he missed that wide open three. I think he airballed it. But yeah, Danny Green has been terrible. I've been calling for Danny Green to be traded all year, and Danny Green holds the most amount of money in terms of being a salary filler. You know, there was rumors about the Lakers acquiring DeMar DeRozan. You know, he makes $27 million a year, but then you can toss in a guy like Danny Green, and then you can make it up with other players, being that Kuzma was going to be included as well as a first-round pick. But anyways, yeah, so the Lakers get Dennis Schroeder, a guy who averaged 19 points a game, a guy who came off the bench and gave a scoring punch for the OKC Thunder. Not only that, Dennis Schroeder came in second place in terms of the Sixth Man of the Year award. So he's a guy that's capable. You look at what he did with ATL. He used to give the Wizards buckets, man. He used to give John Wall buckets, man. Dennis Schroeder has always been a baller, man. The guy can play. So you get Dennis Schroeder, you give up Danny Green, and a first-round pick, which was probably not going to be able to play anyways. So that was an awesome trade for the Lakers. Lakers definitely win that deal, and they still get to keep Kuzma. Speaking of Kuzma got in his feelings because he's been getting hit up on Twitter about trades and all that stuff. So Kuzma kind of got, real fed up, deactivated his Twitter. Let's see if Kuzma comes in and balls out this year. So we don't know what's about to happen with that. But anyways, another small deal that went down. Well, it's small to whoever. I mean, it just all depends on preference. So the Brooklyn Nets, they receive Bruce Brown, and the Detroit Pistons receive I'm not even going to try to pronounce his first name, but Musa, a nice young player, and a 2021 second-round pick that came from Toronto. So which is probably going to be a high second-round pick, maybe in the 50 range, because Toronto's always good. So if it's a Toronto pick, it's going to be a pick in the 50s because Toronto has had plenty of success. So Musa, I've watched him. He's the guy that has some promise. Bruce Brown, I've watched him as well. So this wasn't a big trade, but it's more so the Nets acquiring, assets that, fit what they're trying to do. And then the Pistons, getting rid of a player that they're pretty much not going to use, and then still acquire a second-round pick. So I think the Pistons won that deal. So we move on to a big deal. This has been the biggest deal so far. And this deal right here consisted of Chris Paul. Chris Paul was a guy that when they got this guy, they've been trying to get rid of Chris Paul for a long time. So I don't know why it took this long for them to trade Chris Paul. So the Phoenix Suns get Chris Paul and Adele Nadar. Nadar is a decent guy. He can play. He played for the Celtics. He's played for OKC. He's been a solid contributor to their team. But OKC Thunder, they received Kelly Oubre They received Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, Jalen LeCay, and a 2022 first-round pick. Now, I was talking to my brother-in-law, and he was telling me, man, he was like, man, okay, Phoenix gave up too much for Chris Paul. Oh, they gave up too much for Chris Paul. Then I was asking him, what do you mean they gave up too much? I said, okay, let's break this thing down. Kelly Oubre gets paid $15 million, and he's on a 1-year deal. So that means that's an expiring contract. Kelly Oubre is probably another piece that OKC is going to move. OKC has like a good 15 to 16 first-round picks between now and 2025. That's crazy. That's nuts. That's insane. So you get Kelly Oubre, who you're going to get rid of anyways, right? You get Ricky Rubio, you give up Ricky Rubio, who you're replacing with Chris Paul, so that cancels out. Ty Jerome is a project player that has a chance to be something in the NBA, but for right now, he's a project. Okay. Then Jalen LeCay, he's a guy, he's young, he's promising, but then he's also another project. He's a guy that can develop in the next 3 to 4 years, maybe 5. So it's not like a home run hitter. Like you don't get Jalen LeCay right now and he starts putting up 25. I'm not saying that he can't, but that's not the reason why they grabbed him. They grabbed him because he's a young asset. He's a young guy that can possibly play on a team that's rebuilding. And then you get a 2020 second first. So 2022 first round pick. Now, if Phoenix is supposed to be good this season and it's supposed to be good maybe next season, right? And it's a possibility that they might be good the season after that. But either way it goes, you figure that first round pick is going to be a late first round pick. So literally, what did Phoenix really give up? They didn't give up anything. So I go back to saying, okay, you're gaining Chris Paul, right? You're getting a guy who, yes, he's old. He is as old as dirt. But guess what? Chris Paul was second all-team, all-NBA last year. Chris Paul is a guy that's a game changer. You put Chris Paul on your team, you are gaining a winner. You're gaining a guy who wants to win, a guy who's tough. Ricky Rubio wasn't nothing like Chris Paul. Chris Paul will go out there and try to guard the best guys. The only reason why it did not work between James Harden and Chris Paul in Houston is because James Harden is a diva. James Harden is a guy who wants things his way. And when Chris Paul got in his grill and told him what he was doing, James Harden got in his feelings. And guess what? Next thing you know, Chris Paul is out of Houston. And how did Houston react? Houston was trash. They didn't win anything. They barely got to the second round. Matter of fact, it was Chris Paul, a Chris Paul-led team that almost took out a Houston team that had 2 former MVPs. That just shows you the impact that Chris Paul has. He's a winner. Yes, he hasn't won a championship, but he's a winner. And I believe when it's all said and done, when his 2-year contract runs out, he is going to be a vet on some team trying to win a championship, and Chris Paul would possibly have a chance to win a ring on a contender. But I don't see Phoenix being a contender this year, maybe next year when they add more free agents. And free agency is just getting started. So a lot can happen between now and December 22nd when the season starts. So, I like it. DeAndre Ayton, if you play fantasy basketball, DeAndre Ayton is going to be a guy that's going to be a walk-in 2010. Chris Paul is going to make that guy lethal. And then you're talking about Devin Booker catching passes from Chris Paul in the shooting pocket. It's going to be crazy. So I really like this deal. I feel that Phoenix won this deal, even though it seems like Phoenix gave up a lot. I feel like Phoenix won this deal. But on the flip side, the Thunder has flipped every single guy that they've received and turned them into draft picks. So don't be surprised if Kelly Oubre moves for a first, or Kelly Oubre around trade deadline. He's going to be a key guy that they can possibly get another first for. Ricky Rubio, maybe there's a contender, maybe there's a team that he fits, and maybe they get a first down the line for that. But that contract is pretty hefty. Ty Jerome and Jay LeCay are just guys that they gain to continue to build that nucleus. So let's go to the next NBA trade. This one was crazy. So Portland receives Robert Covington. Shout out to Robert Covington. He went to my college here in Nashville, Tennessee State University. Shout out to Robert Covington. And Houston gets Trevor Ariza, who's probably going to get cut. And then they get a 2020 first-round pick, which is pick number 16. Then they get a protected first-round pick in 2021. So 2 first-round picks for Robert Covington. I don't think that Robert Covington is worth 2 first-round picks. I love him, but I don't think he's worth 2 first-round picks. So I was on Twitter. One guy was telling me, well, you're not going to find another defender like Robert Covington in the draft. Okay, he's such a good defender, but what did he do versus the Lakers? I mean, Houston had a nice little defensive team between Covington and PJ Tucker. Those are 2 guys that are very defensive minded and play good defense, but it's more than just getting a defender. I guess when you're trading for need, you're willing to give up pieces to get what you need. So it seems like the Portland Trailblazers are going to lose what's that guy's name? Trent Jr., Gary Trent Jr. So he's leaving. He was a big piece to what they do offensively, and Rodney Hood opted out. So those are 2 guys, 2 shooters, 2 big pieces that you're going to be losing out on. Carmelo Anthony, I don't know if he returns, but getting Robert Covington, that kind of shifts Carmelo Anthony out of there, or you transition Carmelo Anthony to the 4 permanently, because Robert Covington can play the 3 and the 4, but I like him better as a 3. And with Robert Covington, if they decide to keep Carmelo, he can guard some of those wings that Carmelo can guard. So, yes, he is a guy that can feel a need for them. He's a great 3-point shooter. So you add 3-point shooting already to having Dame and McCullough. And then Robert Covington is going to be a guy that can help out and guard some of the bigger 2s that McCullough can guard. So Covington is more key than what I thought. Now that I'm kind of breaking it down, I kind of understand why they gave up 2 first-round picks. But, man, that's desperation right there, to be honest. Robert Covington does have a very good contract. So the contract was cheap enough, and they probably felt like, you know what, we can keep this guy around for a while. He has a cost-efficient contract. And then maybe he fits in with what Dame and what McCullough can do. They do miss Mo Harkless a lot. Mo Harkless was a key piece to their team. They do miss Aminu a lot. So they kind of missed that big wing that can guard some 4s and guard some 3s and even some 2s. So we'll see how that works out for them, but it's still a steep price because a first-round pick number 16, that could be huge, but I think that they are in win mode now. I don't think they have time to kind of play around and hope that the 16th pick turns out into something. I think Dame is getting fed up out there in Portland, and pretty soon, you might be seeing a Dame trade. I understand that Dame wants to stay out there and grind out in Portland with CJ, kind of like how the Wizards are grinding out with John Wall and Beal for a while. You don't see that anymore. So we'll see what happens. 2 first-round picks for a role player. That's unprecedented. You don't see that a lot, but it's going to be interesting, man. I'm not mad at Portland. Sometimes you got to do things to make your star happy. And we're going to get into some crazy trades that possibly made their stars happy. So the next trade that we're going to get into is the next big trade. This trade right here went down last night. Right before I was about to go to sleep, and I'm like, whoa, Shams, man. I mean, my phone was going off. It was crazy. So the Milwaukee Bucks, they get Drew Holiday, and they also get a 2nd rounder, but it's pick number 60. Pretty much a guy that you can just grab and develop in the G League. But anyways, New Orleans Pelicans receive, get ready for this, Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, 2020 first rounder, which is pick number 24. They receive a 2024 first round swap rights. They receive a 2025 first round unprotected. That's huge. So in 5 years, if the Milwaukee Bucks are trash because Giannis leaves or whatever the case may be, and they're trash, and that pick is unprotected, it's a possible lottery pick for the Pelicans. That's smart right there. Then they get a 2026 first round swap. Then they also get a 2027 first rounder unprotected. So in 7 years, you project, if you do your math right, that maybe the Milwaukee Bucks might not be a good team. So there's a possibility so when you do trades like this, you want to get first round picks that are 5 years from now, 7 years from now. And I think 7 years is as far as you can go by the rules, if I'm not mistaken. So just to recap, the New Orleans Pelicans receive Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, 3 first-rounders, and 2 first-round pick swaps. So 3 first-rounders for Jrue Holiday. Wow. But silly folks were telling Laker fans that the Lakers gave up too much for Anthony Davis. Now, these guys go after Jrue Holiday. Now, mind you, the Milwaukee Bucks, their first option was to go ahead and get Dennis Schroeder. That was their first option. And I'm hearing that they sent Eric Bledsoe, maybe another player, and I think two first-round picks or a first-round pick, something like that. They sent Bledsoe and a pick, and I guess OKC was not – the Pelicans were not interested, maybe because of Bledsoe's contract. Maybe they felt like – I'm sorry, I'm getting all this stuff mixed up. So the Milwaukee Bucks sent a deal to the OKC Thunder. They sent them Eric Bledsoe for Dennis Schroeder, but they were not willing to take that pick, okay? Schroeder is a guy that's on a 1-year deal, right? Eric Bledsoe is on a deal. I think Eric Bledsoe is overpaid. Yes, he's made all defensive team, blah, blah, but it doesn't matter. That contract is not something that they were willing to be a part of. So instead, they took the Lakers deal because it's a 1-year expiring deal. So it works out for both teams. You get your guy, we get our guy, works out. But for the fact that Milwaukee gives up 3 first-round picks for Jrue Holiday, who is a good star. He is one of the best two-way players in the league. So I'm not disputing that. But what I'm disputing is that they gave up too much. But how much is too much when you're trying to make your superstar 2-time back-to-back MVP happy? You got to do what you got to do to make Giannis happy, because if Giannis walks, the Milwaukee Bucks are done. Because guess what? They overpaid Chris Middleton. That's a contract that's going to be tough to get rid of. They overpaid Eric Bledsoe. They were lucky to get rid of Bledsoe, but it cost them 3 first-round picks. Had the Milwaukee Bucks kept Michael Brogdon, none of this will be happening right now. Michael Brogdon gives you a whole nother element that Eric Bledsoe can't give you. Eric Bledsoe is good defensively, but he's not as good offensively. He can't create plays. He's not that great of a shooter. But now you go ahead and get a Jrue Holiday, who a cheaper version of him would have been Michael Brogdon. So, lesson learned. Lesson learned. You just paid the wrong guy. And even if you was going to trade Bledsoe, do what you did with Brogdon. Do a sign and trade. Get rid of Bledsoe and keep Brogdon. But they went with the vet and let go of the young guy, and now it cost them. They're now mortgaging their future in order to keep Giannis happy. So this is one of 2 trades that the Bucks did last night to keep Giannis in town. So the next deal, when this deal went down, by that time I was asleep. And I'm pretty sure by the time I go to sleep tonight, it's going to be more deals that go down. But in the meantime, I'm going to check my notifications to make sure that no deals have gone on. But the Milwaukee Bucks traded Dante DiVincenzo, Ersan Ilyasova, and DJ Wilson. DJ Wilson is just a toss-in. He's not a factor. He's not going to do anything impactful for their team. And the Sacramento Kings sent Bogdan Bogdanovic and Justin James. Justin James, nobody knows. I don't know him, but hey, who knows? Maybe he might be a big piece for the Milwaukee Bucks. Sometimes you get these toss-in, and these toss-ins become something great. But Bogdan Bogdanovic was a guy, his name was tossed around all last year. There was possibilities that Kyle Kuzma gets traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic, and I'm glad that my Lakers did not do that deal, because Bogdanovic offers you a little bit more defense, a little bit of shooting, but when you look at the numbers, him and Kuz were about the same numbers-wise. So it's just kind of all about style of play. Kuz defense increased. Kuz is a guy that can go off for massive points. I think that Kuz is a better scorer than Bogdanovic, but Bogdanovic is a better pure shooter. So Milwaukee gains another player, but at $15 million a year. And I don't know how many years he's locked in under contract. So these are some of the things that you got to keep in mind of. You now get Jrue Holiday. You now get Bogdanovic. So you get Giannis the help that he needs. That's 2 shooters. But then you lose a Dante DiVincenzo who was so solid defensively. He was like a Caruso type player in terms of impact. And he was a guy that can kind of fill it up from the field. He's a guy that, had a little shot to him. And Ersan was a nice pick when they got him, but he became expendable because of the cap. So these 2 deals kind of get Milwaukee right to that cap. They're going to lose one of the Lopez brothers, Robin. They're going to lose another player. So they're going to be looking to buy some second-round picks. This is when you're going to see people buy second-round picks come tomorrow, because these teams that have, tons of players, or where 2 or 3 players make up their entire cap, you got to fill it with veteran minimum contracts and also second-rounders. So second-rounders are actually cheaper than vet minimums. So look for them to do that. So Drew Holiday, Bogdanovich, this is a start of what could possibly keep Giannis in town. So that's a nice little 4 guys or 5 guys with Brook Lopez and Middleton, Bogdanovich, Drew Holiday. It's solid. Also, because of these recent deals, Wesley Matthews has already opted out. So Wesley Matthews was possibly leaving anyway. So that's going to be a piece that they're going to be missing out on. Wesley Matthews had Jimmy Butler on lock during the playoffs in the bubble. Wesley Matthews is a pretty good player. He's a solid defender, and he's a guy that can mix it up with some guys. And he's still a very good shooter, very, very solid shooter. So these are the deals that went down already. I'm pretty sure that some deals will go down tonight. The time right now is 10:36 p.m. Central Time. When I wake up in the morning, I expect for a couple more deals to have gone down. I felt that Russell Westbrook would be getting traded tonight. It's not looking like it so far. There was a call by the Rockets to the Wizards. It was a deal involving John Wall and Russell Westbrook. When you look at their deals, they have 3 more years left on their supermaxes. But the problem is the Rockets wanted assets along with John Wall for Russell Westbrook. If I'm the Wizards, I don't do that deal. The Wizards are my second team, but you don't do that deal because Russell Westbrook, as much as he wants to be the man, he'll have to play with Bradley Beal. And if that relationship goes sour, Bradley Beal walks after this season. Now, you'll have an aging Russell Westbrook to build around, which Russell Westbrook sells tickets. He's a different animal. He's a whole different ball game. So in terms of competitive nature and tenacity, you give it to Westbrook. But in terms of who is the better overall player right now, well, we don't know what John Wall looks like right now, but I would have said that John Wall was the better player. But with all this being said, I don't see that deal going down. But Shams did report it, and it just went crazy. On my Twitter, I have a bunch of DMV guys, a lot of Redskins fans, a lot of Wizards fans, people that live in the area. They were going crazy. Nobody wants Russell Westbrook for John Wall. John Wall is DC. I'm a big John Wall fan myself. I'm a big Bradley Beal fan myself. If I'm the Wizards, you want to see what John Wall and Bradley Beal do together this season as they prepare to see, hey, are we going to blow this thing up? Because look, Beal wants to win. And I think this season is going to determine whether Beal finishes his last 2 years in DC. But I'm telling you this, after those 2 years, there's a possibility that Bradley Beal leaves. Or if they trade John Wall for a piece that fits in with Bradley Beal, and then the Wizards are a top 5 or a top 6 team, I think that Bradley Beal will stick around. But it just kind of all depends. He wants to win. He's in the prime of his career right now. He don't want to be stuck in DC past age 30 and them not having success. So, players got to do what's best for them. You know what I'm saying? After a while, you've been in the system. You've kind of seen how things work. DC loves John Wall. DC loves Bradley Beal. They had a couple of seasons that were magical in DC. But now it's all about John Wall's health. And the GM said, hey, John Wall is not going to play all these minutes. He's not going to play starters minutes. So that's something to monitor. So that was rumor number 1. I've seen a rumor to where the Lakers can sign and trade KCP, right? And maybe add Kuzma and maybe a future pick if they have any to get DeRozan. I don't see that happening. DeRozan is on a $27 million deal. In order to sign KCP, you probably got to sign him to maybe an $18 million deal, $20 million deal, and then you toss in a couple fillers to get that deal done. $27 million is just too steep, so I don't see that happening. Now, a guy like Zach LaVine, I think his contract is cheaper. Maybe you can do something like that involving KCP and maybe another piece in order to acquire LaVine. But the Lakers should not be so quick to get rid of KCP, because if Avery Bradley is most likely leaving, Rondo is possibly going to the Clippers or ATL. Most likely Clippers. He wants to stay in LA, and I think he's done all he has wanted to do in the Lakers, because getting Schroeder's going to start, or he's going to get more minutes than Rondo. So that makes Rondo expendable, but don't count Rondo out. He can possibly come back and, come back on a 1-year deal and make this run. But knowing Rondo, he probably wants a 2-year deal, maybe $15 million. And, he kind of wants to secure his future a little bit. Lakers are doing 1-year deals right now because they want to attack that 2021 free agency where there's some major guys coming out. So monitor that. So if Avery Bradley's leaving the Lakers and Rondo potentially in KCP, you've lost 3 guys that can defend. You've lost 3 of your better defenders, leaving Caruso. Dennis Schroeder's not much of a defender. So, okay, let's say you lose all these 3 guys. Then you look at the guys like Wesley Matthews coming in and Mo Harkless. Like you literally got to go grab these guys and possibly pay if you can. There's rumors that Lakers might be able to get Serge Ibaka. He's going to be looking for anywhere between $10 to $15 million a year. But he also values winning. He also values championships. So maybe he might be able to take that $9 million mid-level exception from the Lakers if it's available. So a lot of things can shake for the world champions. We just have to see. There's a lot of free agency left. It's just getting started. After the draft, players would start to talk to teams about agreeing on deals, and they can sign 2 days from that draft. So by the 20th, you should start seeing people sign their deals. So that's pretty exciting. I've seen rumors to where Andrew Wiggins and the 2nd overall pick can be packaged for something nice. I think Wiggins makes about 20 plus million, or is it 27 million? So with that money, you're able to package that to get something nice. There's a rumor where Gordon Hayward is most likely going to be traded. He has until Wednesday or Thursday to opt into his $27 million a year. So we don't know what's about to happen. I'm sorry, it's more than 27 million. I think it's up to 30-something million dollars, and he's going to take it. So it's all about, can the Celtics find a trade partner in order to go ahead and offload Gordon Hayward? That's going to be interesting. These are some of the things that teams are looking at. You get a Gordon Hayward, even a Gordon Hayward with an Andrew Wiggins type deal. That could work. I think that Gordon Hayward fits better with the Golden State Warriors than a guy like a Wiggins. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of movement, and this is what NBA fans live for. The movement, the trades. Even when it's not your team trading, you still enjoy seeing these trades go down, because every time a trade goes down, it's pretty exciting. Us fans have just been spoiled by guys like Woj and Shams just always dropping news. So we're always glued to Twitter or ESPN to kind of see what goes down. So tons of deals can go down. James Harden wants to go to the Brooklyn Nets. I don't see how that happens. How can James Harden go to the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie or KD is not in the deal? It just doesn't make any sense. If you say, okay, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, what other assets do you have? Joe Harris is gone. So what first-round picks do you have? And then to match Harden's salary, it's going to be crazy. So I just don't know how a deal like that happens, but Harden has made it clear that he wants to get traded. Russell Westbrook has made it clear that he wants to get traded. The Charlotte Hornets, they want Russell Westbrook. The New York Knicks want Russell Westbrook. It's all about what are teams willing to give to get a Westbrook or a Harden. So The Houston Rockets have reported that, hey, they're not messed up with their stars being unhappy. They're not messed up with going into the season with 2 unhappy stars, because at the end of the day, if you don't get the price that you want, you're not going to trade. You're just not going to sell. So I respect that. I actually like that from these guys. So like I said, man, there's going to be tons of trades going down, tons of rumors out there. So it's all about what teams do to benefit themselves. So, yeah, man, I think the best trade so far, I will have to give it to Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns. That deal has made the most sense for a win-now type team. You got plenty teams looking for the services of Spencer Dinwiddie. We'll see what happens there. I think he has a pretty cheap contract, so possibly you can see a smaller deal go across. Maybe the Lakers trade a Kyle Kuzma for Spencer Dinwiddie. I don't know if the money matches. I don't even know how that works, to be honest, because I'm not sure of Spencer Dinwiddie's contract, but it shouldn't be too expensive. Maybe not Kuzma, because he's still on a rookie deal, so that wouldn't make any sense. But the Lakers are interested in bringing back Dwight Howard and Markieff Morris. The reports say ATL is literally trying to pay Rondo a significant amount to bring him over. But how does that work? Rondo with Trey, I don't know. But hey, Rondo does well everywhere that he goes. So, like I said, tons of rumors out there. We'll see what happens. Kimball Walker, yeah, the Celtics are trying to get rid of Kimball Walker, and it's so crazy because he's a guy that came to the Celtics to be that guy that replaces Kyrie, and I think he played rather well. But maybe the Celtics are looking for more. Maybe they're looking for a guy that can do more than what Kimba can do. But I like Kimba on this team. But I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, the Bulls have reached out for a potential deal. Maybe a deal where Zach LaVine goes over to the Celtics. I mean, I don't know. What can the Bulls literally offer for Kimball Walker? I don't know. The New Orleans Pelicans are interested in Gordon Hayward. Plenty of teams are interested in Gordon Hayward. So, like I said, we'll see what happens. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk some some NFL fantasy football. So let me go ahead and pull up last week's studs. And we're going to talk about some duds as well. But a lot happened in fantasy football this past week. And you got to love it, man. I was in a league where I needed to win. And I started Pope from the Chargers. I was thinking that Pope was going to be able to get half the carries, even though I told you guys last week that Kellen Ballage was going to be a very good pickup. So Kellen Ballage ended up being the main guy. And then Pope had zeros all across the board. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe the coaches just was not feeling him for whatever the reason may be. So that kind of hurt my chances this past week. But let's look at the top 12 QBs. Let's see who came in top 12. So we have Tom Brady. Let me make sure it's Tom Brady. All right. It's Tom Brady at the QB1. That was a shocker. I mean, it's not a shocker. Tom Brady has had good game, bad game, good game, bad game. And I had him on my bench, and then he goes off. But I was still able to beat the number one team in my league to improve the first place in that league. So it was interesting. Kyler Murray has been amazing. He had 30 points in fantasy, and he had that Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins over 3 people. Man, let me tell you something, guys. Kyler Murray is this year's MVP. At the beginning of the year, I would have said Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson has fallen off because his team is just so bad. They have no running backs. They have receivers, but they have no defense. So literally, Russell has to do so much. And then they don't even have an offensive line. So Kyler Murray came in at the QB2, Josh Allen at 3, Roethlisberger at 4, Rodgers at 5, Matthew Stafford shredded my skins at 6. Oh, man, my skins are awful, man. How did they lose that game? Lamar Jackson at 7, Daniel Jones at 8, Herbert at 9, Bridgewater at 10, Kirk Cousins at 11, and Cam Newton at 12. Cam Newton continues to be a QB1. Why? Because he knows how to run with the football. But yeah, Daniel Jones has been a big surprise, man. He ran 9 times for 64 yards and a score. He continues to get rushing touchdowns. Let's look at the last few games by Daniel Jones, man. It's about almost time to pick him up. So he has a 21-point game, 18, 12, and 22. That's solid. Next, he plays Cincinnati, Seattle, who has a trash defense, and Arizona, who has a suspect defense as well. So he can go off every game for those 3 games. And one of those games is heading into the playoffs. It's a playoff game. So Daniel Jones might be a guy that you might want to just go ahead and just pick up and just call it a day. Phillip Rivers played well. Alex Smith had 390 yards. Alex Smith, back-to-back 300-yard games for the first time in his career. He has not done that ever in the NFL. Even in all those teams that he had in Kansas City, he never had back-to-back 300-yard games. Tua Tagovailoa is playing very well. You got Deshaun Watson out there, Joe Burrow out there. I started Drew Luck, and he just totally sucked, man. Yeah, Drew Luck lost me 2 different leagues. All right, man, let's go ahead and dive into the wide receivers. Like, I had to refresh this thing 2 times because when I clicked on wide receivers for week 10, Cole Beasley was the wide receiver 1. That's crazy. So he was targeted 13 times. He caught 11 receptions for 109 yards and a score. 11 receptions, 27 points. That's crazy. Number 2 was DeAndre Hopkins. I think that miracle catch boosted his stats up even more, or he would have fell. He would not have been, top 2. Stephon Diggs, number 3. Oh, man. Marquez Valdes-Scantling came in at 4. And you guys know I hate MVS. Marvin Jones at 5. Deontay Johnson at 6. Snead at 7. Juju Smith-Schuster at 8, T. Higgins at 9, Jefferson at 10, Claypool at 11, and Thielen at 12. These are your wide receiver 1s. And if you notice, you see Deontay Johnson out here, Juju Smith-Schuster out here, and Claypool. I told everybody that these 3 wide receivers are going to eat this week. And, you have Juju with Deontay Johnson with 23 points, Juju with 22 points, and Claypool with 21 points. So 21, 22, 23. That's just it does not get any better than that. But when you look at the numbers, Deontay Johnson had 6 receptions for 116 yards on the score. Juju Smith-Schuster had 9 receptions, 77 yards and a score. Then you had Claypool with 4 receptions, 56 yards, and 2 scores. So all these receivers got love. But when you look at the target share, Juju was targeted 13 times. Deontay Johnson was targeted 11 times, and Claypool was targeted 10 times. So Ben Roethlisberger loves his wide receivers. I still think that Juju Smith-Schuster is expendable this year. It sounds crazy because he's such a good player, but I think he's expendable. I think Deontay Johnson is their best receiver. Ben Roethlisberger loves him some Deontay Johnson, and Claypool is not a slouch. So you have 2 young guys under rookie contract deals that are cheaper, and then maybe they can use the money that they're going to pay Juju to spend on maybe running back. Maybe now you can re-sign Connor, or maybe you let Connor walk. Maybe you draft a running back. The Steelers have a lot of options, and it's good to have options. So we'll see what happens in free agency, but Thielen and Jefferson, that's another powerful combo right there. On a running team, you hear, hey, these guys are on a running team. These 2 guys are not going to produce because they run a lot in Minnesota. But if you notice, Dalvin Cook has been kind of getting bottled a little bit. And to keep things honest, you got to be able to pass the ball. So they was able to squeak out a game. And I think that the Chicago Bears have a decent defense. But Jefferson was able to get 8 receptions for 135 yards receiving. No score, but still ended up with 21 points. And then Thielen, he's the guy that cleans up everything. He had 4 catches for 43 yards and 2 scores. So Thielen is the Claypool for this team. He's the guy that gets the touchdowns. You can always count on Claypool as being a guy that gets touchdowns. You can count on Thielen to score touchdowns. You can count on Mike Evans to score touchdowns. So every team has that guy that scores, and then every team has that guy that gets yards. Jefferson is the yards guy. Thielen is the touchdown guy. Deontay Johnson is the guy that's targeted a lot. He gets yards. Sometimes he scores, but then Claypool scores, and then Juju gets a lot of catches. So that's the dynamics of how that works. Speaking of Mike Evans, he had a good game. He had 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a score for 19 points. DJ Moore played well. Brandon Ayuk has been a guy that's been balling, man. Trade deadline is over, so you can't trade for this guy, but he had 7 receptions for 77 yards. But speaking of the rookies, you got to give love to T. Higgins. T. Higgins continues to ball. He had 7 receptions for 115 yards and a score. Higgins, Jefferson, and Claypool were 3 guys that were big on my list, and I did draft all 3 in my Dynasty League. How did I pull it off? I don't even know. I got lucky. But a guy to go and pick up this week is Michael Pittman Jr. He's going to be out there. Phillip Rivers have developed a decent relationship with Michael Pittman Jr. And who knows? That might be the guy. That might be the guy that you might want to go ahead and grab in fantasy. Josh Reynolds had him a good game. 8 receptions for 94 yards. He's becoming that third wide receiver for the Rams. I mean, they got so much weapons. Look at his last 4 games. He had 12 points, which is 2 receptions, 45 yards, and a score. The next game, he had 4 receptions, 52 yards, and a score. So 12 points, 15 points. Then he had an 8-point, which is 4 receptions, 44 yards receiving. But what's promising is that he's being targeted. He's being targeted 5 to 9 times a game. And that's pretty solid, even though you have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Also, you have the game versus Seattle, being a terrible defense. He was targeted 10 times, 8 receptions for 94 yards. So if you're looking for wide receiver help, you want to go ahead and grab guys like Michael Pittman Jr., Reynolds, Keelan Cole if he's out there. You also want to pick up Jakeem Grant. He had a decent game. He's going to be a guy that's going to be targeted more and more as the season goes on. If Slayton is out there, you want to go ahead and scoop him because he has some juicy matchups coming up. Marvin Hall is out there. So there's tons of wide receivers to go ahead and grab. Even a guy like Isaiah Wright, playing with the Washington Redskins, he's a guy that's a check down for Alex Smith. So you want to go ahead and grab him. Let's go ahead and dive into running backs. You have Alvin Kamara coming in at running back 1. You have Josh Jacobs at running back 2. Welcome back to the NFL, Josh Jacobs. You have Nyheim Hines at 3. Deandre Swift at 4. Ronald Jones at 5. He had a big game. We're going to get into Ronald Jones in a minute. Burkhead at 6. Antonio Gibson at 7. You have Booker at 8. Malcolm Brown at 9. Gallman at 10, Nick Chubb at 11, and J.D. McKissick at 12. This week, J.D. McKissick gets 17 points, and he ends up at 12. Last week, J.D. McKissick gets 17 and ends up at RB2. So, Dalvin Cook didn't even crack the top 10. The top 12. But let's get into Rojo, man. Rojo had him a game. He rushed 23 times for 192 yards and a score. I think he broke that 99-yard touchdown or 98-yard touchdown, and I was cheering for him. Not just because he's on my fantasy team, but Rojo just needs something in his life, man, to kind of get him going. Deandre Swift played magnificent. I think he's coming into his own. He's making a case for RB1 as a rookie. Nyheim Hines, maybe he's a guy that is going to gel with Phillip Rivers, but be kind of careful with that team. It can go either way. Rex Burkhead had an amazing game. He ran the ball 6 times for 31 yards. He caught 4 receptions for 35 yards and 2 scores. I was telling you guys that Rex Burkhead is a little bit of a Sony Michel or a Harris mixed with a James White. He can catch the ball very well, but he can also run the ball. So he's a unique talent. He's a guy that needs volume to be able to produce. But if Burkhead is available in your free agency, you want to go grab him. If Nyheim Hines is available, you want to go ahead and grab him. Also, Devonta Booker I was thinking that it was a scenario where Josh Jacobs was hurt, but Devonta Booker is becoming a solid number 2 running back for that team. They're creating a nice little tandem, you know. Also, Malcolm Brown, he happens to be the running back that goes off this week. I mean, he gets 6 rushes, 33 yards, and 2 rushing scores. He caught 2 passes for 18 yards. So with Malcolm Brown, with that backfield, it's just tough. But Gallman is a guy that just continues to be in the top 12 every single week. J.D. McKissick, top 12 every single week. There should be no reason why Gallman or J.D. McKissick are not rostered. Okay, Nick Chubb finally came back. I made a trade in my dynasty league. I gave up a first-round pick for Nick Chubb. I was actually sending David Montgomery in a second. The guy told me he didn't like Montgomery, so he sent me a first round. He sent me Nick Chubb for a first rounder, and I took it. I got to start him, and that was the difference between me going 8-2 or me being 7-3. So I appreciate you, Michael Barrow, if you're listening. Their show is the Dynasty Rewind. Make sure you guys go and check them out over there. A great content. Kellen Balaj had a game. I told you guys about this guy. He had 18 carries for 68 yards. He caught 5 receptions for 34 with a big 15 points. Guys like Boston Scott went off. He's a guy to pick up. Man, this guy right here, Spawn Ahmed. He is the new sensation. He's probably going to be the number 1 waiver wire ad this week. He ran the ball 21 times for 85 yards and a score, 1 reception for 5 yards. So Salvon Ahmed is going to be one of the top, if not the top, waiver wire ads or ad this week. Look out for guys like Alex Collins. Man, that Ravens backfield that Seattle backfield continues to get muddier and muddier and muddier. So we'll see what happens there. So these are your running backs for the week. Let's go ahead and get into tight ends before we wrap this show up. So for tight ends, man, it was a rough week for tight ends, but tight ends are just tight ends. When there's no Kelsey, it looks like this. Gronkowski was the tight end 1 this week. Mark Andrews finally stepped up, was the tight end number 2. He had 7 receptions for 61 yards. So if you had Mark Andrews in your lineup, you most likely won. It's hard to get points out of tight ends. Hunter Henry was 3. Cameron Brate was 4. Jordan Reed, 5. Logan Thomas, 6. Brown, 7. Rodgers, 8. Jonnu Smith, 9. Higbee, 10. Smite. He was 11, and Kyle Rudolph was 12. So the number 12 tight end had 8 points. That's just how bad tight ends have been. Look, starting Goddard, who gave me 7 points, or starting a guy like Jordan Reed, who gives you 11. Those 3 points are key on whether you win or lose. Like I said again, Goddard gives you, 7 points, but then you get a guy like Gronkowski give you 13. So those are make or break plays that win you the league. So we don't know what the tight end is going to be looking like this week. Maybe a guy like Ebron goes off. Maybe Gesicki goes off. Gesicki might be a guy you might want to grab because it seems like him and Tua, they're going to start to connect soon. They will start to connect. And once that happens, you'll remember, hey, that guy from Talking Sports with Manny told me to pick up Gesicki, and I didn't. So, yeah, man, tight ends, when people inbox me on Twitter all the time asking me which tight end to pick up, I just kind of tell them, look, all the tight ends suck. Just pick one and just hope for the best, okay? Now, kickers, this guy named Tyler Bass for the Buffalo Bills, he went off, man. He had 18 points. He was the kicker 1 this week. Sokop had 17. Matt Prater's a guy that you can possibly count on week in and week out. He had 16 points. For the most part, he gets you anywhere between 8 to 12 points a game. Sanders had 14. Sanders has had some pretty big games this season. He's coming off of a back-to-back 14-point effort. He plays Denver. Look for that to be a great kicking matchup for him. He plays the Jets, and he plays Cincinnati. So go ahead and pick up Jason Sanders. That's the kicker to own right now. Rodrigo Blankenship continues to be solid, continues to be consistent. He had 11 points. He's back to double digits from the past 3 weeks of single digits. Let's look at the defenses. Guys, I've been stressing pick up Miami. Miami would have had more of an impact this week if it wasn't for a few plays here and there that kind of gave these guys confidence. But yeah, the Vegas Raiders, they came in number 1 this past week. New Orleans has been solid the past couple weeks. They're coming off of a 16-point effort and a 14-point effort. That might be a defense you might want to pick up because they play Denver in week 12. So definitely somebody you want to pick up. You got Chicago, who's up and down, but, they have some pretty good players. You got the Rams, who stepped up versus Seattle. I was shocked to see that. And this week they're playing Tampa Bay. So you also want to look at all the injuries with all the quarterbacks out there. You got Drew Brees, punctured lungs and 5 cracked ribs. So you want to look at who the Saints play next. The Saints play Tampa Bay. Sorry, the Saints play ATL. Nah, don't pick up ATL's defense. So just look at defensive matchups and kind of stream, look at situations, look at the weather, certain things to look at, and kind of know, who's at home, who's not at home. But good luck with defenses because you just never know. Guys like the Colts have been pretty much consistent for the most part, 15 points, 5, 10. If you can get 10 points out of your defense, you're doing something right. So just kind of wanted to hit the NFL fantasy before I got off this episode, but I hope you guys enjoy this thing. Be sure to follow me on Talking Sports with Manny on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at TS with Manny. Be sure to share this podcast with as many people as you can. Hey, be sure to hit me up on Twitter. We can talk. My personal page is at Manny Chakuba on Twitter. Look me up on Instagram as well, TS with Manny. So, guys, this is the episode. You guys stay safe. You guys stay blessed.